How is this still going on? This verse been going for way too long. If you ain't blind, you can see that this is wrong. And I won't comply. Not me, no way.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. That weird week between Christmas and New Year's, where it's kind of going to visit family, making the switch from Christmas music back to regular music, swearing that you're not going to eat as much, and then you get to the next event thing that you're at, and you think, well, next week. Next week, that's what's going to happen next week. Lots going on as well on the news front. It's a weird kind of week because there's nothing happening officially, but there's interviews happening and people disseminating interviews and people talking about what's coming and predictions of 2023. And so we'll get to all of that because there's lots of that kind of stuff to get to. And Elon Musk is making news by dropping lots of Twitter files, and we'll talk about that and about Elon Musk and different perspectives of Elon Musk. Also, I've been talking about Google and the number of FBI agents and intelligence agents that work for Twitter, Facebook, etc. Google's among those names as well. We'll talk about that today as well. Twitter censorship on COVID specifically, the new Twitter file dropped the other day or yesterday, I guess. So we'll talk about that. 25% increase in gun crime since 2021. That's a big increase in a year. That seems counter to what we've been told that the Liberals are doing for gun crime. We were told that they were going to solve that, and apparently going after legal gun owners is increasing gun crime by 25%. So great job, the Liberals, right? Weaponized immigration happening in the UK. Is it happening here too? I'll let you be the judge of that. And predictions for 2023, as I said, this is the weird week between Christmas and New Year's. And for my family, New Year's is almost a bigger celebration than Christmas itself. Well, a bigger dinner, maybe not a bigger celebration necessarily, but a bigger dinner and a bigger get together. And so we have a big New Year's Day do, and kind of the tradition in New Year's is to make predictions for the coming year, right? And you make New Year's resolutions that you break, and you make promises to yourself, I suppose. But all sorts of professional people make predictions about what's going to happen in the coming new year, geopolitically, etc. And so we'll have a look at some of those. Elon Musk tweeted out about one I'm going to show you. And he said, this is an epic thread. You have to read this. It's a little pessimistic if you ask me. I hope it doesn't go in the direction. And I think that there's a lot happening in the thread in a year. If what is said in the thread happens in a year, it would be one heck of a year. Jeepers creepers. All right, let's get into it because there's lots to get to. First, if you want to support the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. You could leave a review. Some people were saying that the reviews weren't working, but I tested it out in a private window, like an incognito window, and it worked for me. So give it another shot, please. If it's not working, do email me because I'll do my best to help you out and make it work. So yeah, if you could do that. And there's merch and all sorts of stuff. You could do that on CanadaPoly.com. You can check out CanadaReport.co if you're interested in all the links, and locals, you can support the show that way as well. Okay, let's get into it. Name redacted is talking about Google. I've been talking about Google a lot in the last 6 months, noticing that you can't get past page 50 in a Google result. They say, we've got billions of results for you. If you search banana muffin recipe, right? If you want the millionth banana muffin recipe, you can't get to that. You can get to the 500th. Right? So you get 50 pages, 10 pages per page, 500 results. You can't get to the 1,000th banana muffin recipe. Sorry about your luck. This is dangerous. National security. Right? Google says no mas, right? 50th page. Pretty wild, right? And so what does that mean? Here, I think, is the reason why. And this ties into Twitter just because big tech censorship, this is a thing. I wonder why I was censored on YouTube for medical misinformation when all I was saying was they couldn't possibly be safe and effective. They couldn't possibly know these things are safe and effective because they don't have the time. Similar to if you're baking a cake and you have the batter already and you put the batter in the pan and you put the pan in the hot oven and 3 minutes later you go and try and take a slice, it's not possible. It's just not possible. It doesn't have the integrity to be cut into a slice yet. It's not a cake. It will be a cake. You have to wait and see after the heat is applied, after time is applied, maybe they're safe and effective if we don't get any negative signals in the control group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they didn't wait. All they did was say, we've got a miracle vaccine and it's time to roll it out. And here we go. And if you said it's possible that they're not telling the truth here, sorry about that's medical misinformation, sir. Get out of here. Holy smokeronis, right? I would imagine there's probably going to be some kind of lawsuit, right? What would the lawsuit be? Who would the lawsuit be against? The government? Twitter itself? It's a big mess. Twitter itself, not Twitter itself, YouTube, Google itself. I don't know. All of big tech for censoring people, or only people with a material claim. Like, what if it's a small material claim comparatively, right? I don't know. Okay, Name Redacted is talking about Google and the infiltration of intelligence agencies into Google. Here we go. Google currently employs at least 165 people in high-ranking positions from the intelligence community. Google's trust and safety team is managed by 3 CIA agents who control misinformation and hate speech. Right. Here's the breakdown. CIA, or other government agency, 27, FBI 52, NSA 30, DHS 50, ODNI 6. Here's a thread. I'm not going to go through the thread because we've got lots of threads to go through. But when you get into the nitty gritty, it doesn't look good. And by it doesn't look good, you can see how first all of these people would get in there. It's like you get 1 or 2 government agents in there, and then all of a sudden they're like cockroaches, right? Behind the walls, they're multiplying, and then suddenly there's thousands of them. Holy smoke, where did this NSA guy come from? Right? This is a new cockroach I haven't seen before. So it's quite interesting to have all of these people in big tech roles that are basically in charge of the Ministry of Truth, right? And it's almost like different cells, because now that the Twitter cell has been smoked out by Elon Musk, the other cells are still operational and with their own management from former CIA. So they've got assets up the yin yang. They've got assets. How does that play out in fixing this situation? It seems very, very difficult. Kim.com. I've been talking about Elon Musk, and it seems like he's in this battle for real. This is even more perspective on that. Kim.com says, Elon Musk is a whistleblower who paid $44 billion to share the truth about evildoers with the world. Such a generous gift. Thank you, Elon Musk. And then there's a little, I don't know, kissy face, which I assume is like, thanks, bro. Like the triple hug, right? You tap 3 times. Catchard says, if you want to know what textbook fascism is, read the Twitter files. And yeah, if you've been reading, you should be reading. It's very, very interesting. We'll read some of the this thread today because this is talking about the COVID drop. I could almost do videos just based on the Twitter files specifically. If I don't know if there's interest. I don't know if I have time actually at this point in time. I got lots of other kettles going on at this point. Pots on the stove, whatever it is. Lots of things happening. So what can you do? Anyway, David says, thread, the Twitter files, how Twitter rigged the COVID debate. By censoring info that was true but inconvenient to the U.S. government policy, by discrediting doctors and other experts who disagreed, Byron Bartles one, by suppressing ordinary users, including some sharing the CDC's own data. So far, the Twitter files have focused on evidence of Twitter's secret blacklists, how the company functioned as kind of subsidiary of the FBI, and how executives rewrote the platform's rules to accommodate their own political desires. What we have yet to cover is COVID. This reporting for the Free Press, at the Free Press, this is Barry Weiss's thing, is one piece of that important story. The United States government pressured Twitter and other social media platforms to elevate certain content and suppress other content about COVID-19. Internal files at Twitter that I viewed while on assignment for the Free Press showed that both the Trump and Biden administrations directly pressed Twitter executives to moderate the platform's pandemic content according to their wishes. At the onset of the pandemic, according to meeting notes, the Trump administration was especially concerned about panic buying. They came looking for help from the tech companies to combat misinformation about runs on grocery stores, but there were runs on grocery stores. It wasn't just Twitter. The meetings with the Trump White House were also attended by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and others. When the Biden administration took over, one of their first meeting requests with Twitter executives was on COVID. The focus was on anti-vaxxer accounts, especially Alex Brenson. In the summer of 2021, President Biden said social media companies were killing people and for allowing vaccine misinformation. Brenson was suspended hours after Biden's comments and kicked off the platform the following month. Brenson sued and then settled with Twitter. In the legal process, Twitter was compelled to release certain internal communications, which showed direct White House pressure on the company to take action on Brenson. A December 2022 summary of meetings with the White House by Lauren C., Twitter's head of public policy, adds new evidence of the White House pressures campaign and cements that it repeatedly attempted to directly influence the platform. Lauren C. wrote that the Biden team was very angry that Twitter had not been more aggressive in deplatforming multiple accounts. They wanted Twitter to do more. Twitter executives did not fully capitulate to the Biden team's wishes, and an extensive review of internal communications at the company revealed employees often debating moderation cases in great detail and with more care than was shown by the government towards free speech. But Twitter did suppress views, many from doctors and scientific experts, that conflicted with the official positions on the White House. As a result, legitimate findings and questions that would have expanded the public debate went missing. There's three serious problems with Twitter's process. First, much of the content moderation was conducted by bots trained on machine learning and AI, impressive in their engineering, yet still too crude for such nuanced work. Second, contractors in places like the Philippines also moderated content. I'll break in here really quick. Imagine trying to moderate content from the Philippines. I think in the Philippines, they might speak English. But maybe let's say that there's another place similar to the Philippines where they speak English and a native language. I just can't bring up the native language if the people in the Philippines do speak a native language. Sorry about that. And imagine trying to follow their politics. Imagine trying to moderate their conversations through a decision tree. Right? Like you have a quasi understanding of what's going on, or maybe you have a medium good understanding of what's going on, but the short forms you don't understand, or the slang, the in-between words, the things that kind of give the conversation a sarcastic tone or a funny tone or a teasing tone. You can't get that nuance, right? And so you're sitting there depending on a decision tree. Would that be difficult, do you think, for you to moderate and remove another country, a citizen of another country's speech, to make sure that they're safe? It's all for your safety, comrade, right? Jeepers creepers, this is wild stuff. Okay, so they were given, in places like the Philippines, they were given a decision tree to aid in the process, but tasking non-experts to adjudicate tweets on complex topics like myocarditis and mask efficacy data was destined for a significant error rate. Yeah, well, because they were lying. And now we know that they were lying. So that's interesting, right? I wonder if there's going to be any kind of accountability for any of the public health that are forcing. They're still pushing these shots. And like myocarditis and blood clots are like, that's pretty well known, right? I think this is not something that's surprising. Now, I don't know if they've tied them directly to the shots in every case, because a lot of time when you read about somebody who's died suddenly, sometimes it's a massive heart attack, sometimes it's a stroke, but they don't necessarily say because of the shot or anything to that effect. So it leads me to believe that they're relying on some kind of deniability, like, oh, well, we didn't know. Okay, back to this. With COVID, the basis that the bias bent heavily towards establishment dogma. Inevitably, dissident yet legitimate content was labeled as misinformation, and the accounts of doctors and others were suspended, both for tweeting opinions and demonstrably true information. My YouTube channel was removed because I refused to stop talking about it in a way they didn't like. It's that simple. Basically, that's what it boils down to. And the same thing's happening on Twitter, right? Inevitably, Exhibit A, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so at this point, we're 20 tweets in. You should go and read the rest of it, because if I get stuck on this, it'll be 60 tweets and I'll do the whole thing. So it's wild. They're censoring. They were censoring. They were removing content in order to prune the public discussion and silence that part of the debate. To what end? For what reason? Was it to get the passports in place? Was it to keep you safe? Let me know what you think in the comments. Dean says, and Dean is an MP, and only the people who Dean follows or mentions can reply, apparently. So he's a member of Parliament for Niagara West, and he's responding to Rupa. And Rupa says, thanks to Elon Musk, internal emails seen by these people show that the reporters show that the U.S. government pressured Twitter to suppress legitimate dissent and credible alternative voices and promote a certain narrative about the pandemic and claim it was the science when that was in dispute. So it was never the science. It was always dogma. And Dean says, where's the legacy media on this? I mean, Rupa's kind of legacy media. She posts in the Post and CBC. I think I've seen articles of hers in the CBC and other places that are legitimate, right? It's not Rebel or True North or anything like that. But she does post in True North. I don't think she does Rebel. So, I mean, Rupa's kind of a crossover journalist at this point in time, which is interesting. She's got her foot in both camps, the legacy media and the new media. And so I don't know if anything's going to happen on this in Canada yet. It seems like more is needed, which is interesting. Crazy, but interesting. This meme is making the rounds. The Babylon Bee is having a laugh at Canada's expense, which is not surprising because, I mean, the whole world is having a laugh at Canada's expense. Look at Justin Trudeau. The Babylon Bee says, new Canadian operation game just has you murder the patient. But it's good. I mean, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, right? So that's wild. That's one. Here, this is a Rebel News skit. I guess this is from Misunderstood, or I think Nat B, because I get all the names I say wrong, is a Rebel, co-host of Misunderstood with somebody else and journalist for Rebel News. So this is a skit where she's acting as both the patient and the nurse recommends MAID every time. And like, it reminds me of a late night skit. You get the joke. You get the joke a couple of times, and then at the end it's another joke, right? Good job. I never found the skits funny. I always found the skits kind of pedantic and just kind of boring. I would much rather have Jon Stewart's monologue or Colbert's monologue at the beginning. Always the best part of the show. Always. And I thought to myself, why don't they just do this the whole show? Hence my show. That's what I do. So anyway, regardless, I always thought the skits were boring. I always thought, okay, but it's in that same line of the Babylon Bee saying, you got a sliver. And in Canada, they just say, have you considered MAID? That's the joke over and over and over again. Here's Patrick and SpongeBob. I hated SpongeBob. I made fun when I used to work in children's mental health, and each house was kind of run independently. And one of the houses was SpongeBob mad because one of the staff really liked SpongeBob, and I hated SpongeBob. So I would make fun of SpongeBob all the time. I would just call it ridiculous. It's such a dumb show. It was such a stupid, empty show. I hated SpongeBob. Anyway, regardless, I wouldn't let the kids sit through it because I was like, this is the stupidest show. I'm not wasting. I feel dumber after watching the show. I feel filthy after watching the show. We'll watch Full House. Be quiet, kids. Michelle and Stephanie are learning a lesson. Okay. This is the meme, though. Me gets a splinter. Canadian doctors, it's Patrick and SpongeBob, ushering you into a coffin, right? So they're the doctors. Long way to go for a joke. Here's Elmo. It says, I'm sorry you can't afford to be alive, and other stories of Canada. Right? Yay. That used to be the joke in the United States when the medical insurance was bad and you had a pre-existing condition and they wouldn't honor the agreements and stuff. And now in Canada, if you can't afford to pay the inflation, the rent inflation or the food inflation or anything like that, their solution is, you don't want to be a burden on your family. We can kill you, and that might make everything better. You at least won't be a burden on your family anymore, right? That's the idea. And it's just wild. It's absolutely incredible that people are having to make jokes about this. It's a sad state of Canada because at one point we had higher ideals. I think that we viewed ourselves as being enlightened humans, not necessarily better than other civilizations. I think everywhere you think like, I'm glad I live in blah because blah is the best place in the world and I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. Or even if it's got its drawbacks, at least we've got that free healthcare in Canada, right? At least we've got something to be proud of with the RCMP. Oh, yikes. Right? But all of that's kind of gone now. Oh, goodness. I remember being proud, and then it's all just kind of evaporated, hasn't it? Here is new taxes. Starting in January 23, EI and CPP premiums go up. I've talked about this as payroll taxes. This is to take care of you later because the CPP is doing such a good job of that. They need to increase the premiums because it's doing a great job. Yikes. April 1st, the carbon tax and the alcohol escalator tax get increased. July 1st, Trudeau's second carbon tax goes into effect. The problem is, even if Mr. Poilievre gets in, he says that he's going to undo these carbon taxes. Do you think he's going to undo all of them? Because that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and people seem to be paying it. And once the inflation is entrenched in wages, oh, holy smoke. Now we've got an incentive to keep everything real expensive. And we might as well keep all that money coming in if everybody can afford it anyway, right? I can just hear the argument now. I don't know. Car dealership guy, I thought this was an interesting thread. And he's talking about car shortages. Right now, if you're trying to get a new car, apparently it's a nightmare. People are waiting months and longer. And what impact that has on the economy is like a person who sells a car, the people who buy the car often get a loan, but the person who sells the car get a percentage of that car as salary, making a percentage of that loan cash money and able to be spent, right? And that's that person's livelihood. So if people can't buy cars, then people and car salesmen, that's seen as a pretty decent job. That's a pretty good middle-class job, right? If that disappears, that's going to have an economic impact. If that disappears because people can't afford cars because the interest rate's too high, that's one problem. But if the interest rate's too high and you're going to be waiting a year for a car, like that's not good and will have an economic impact as well, because the car dealer, I don't know if you close that sale. When the people say, yes, we're buying this car, you say, okay, great. Give us your down payment. I don't know if you get paid out until that car is delivered, or it probably has something to do with delivery. Like you don't usually get sale completed until the sale's complete, right? Like, so I think it's going to have an economic impact. Here we go. Car dealership guy says, we still have a new car shortage. In under 2 years, I predict we'll have a used car shortage, but here's what's not being discussed. Supply chains got screwed during the pandemic. Cars were not being produced. This led to supply and demand imbalance, and that led to an increase in prices. But here's the bigger problem. The used car market depends on a constant stream of off-lease vehicles, 2 to 3 year old cars, under 40,000 miles type thing, the typical CarMax car. When consumers return their vehicles at the end of a lease term, the finance companies take the vehicles and sell them to dealers, whether directly or through an auction. But what happens when people aren't returning leases? Finance companies don't have inventory to sell, and that's where the problem lies. It's hard to know exactly what the economic impact of all of this will be. Here's the thing. There's no doubt that we'll have less used cars circulating in the resale market in 2023, but I'll be closely watching Q2 2023. Here's why. The average length of a car lease is 36 months. And this March 2023, will also be the 3-year anniversary since the start of the pandemic, also known as the start of when supply chains got disrupted. And he's got that like yikes face. So what could possibly offset this potential looming crunch? Only 2 things, in my opinion. If the Fed continues to destroy demand by raising interest rates, so nobody can afford a new car, so the reduction in new cars doesn't matter. Nobody will get on a waiting list because nobody can afford to even get on the waiting list. Forget it. And 2, if new car supply gets back to normal. So number 2 is not so likely. Number 1 looks really, really likely. Unfortunate, but that's the reality. Time will tell if I'm right or wrong. What do you think? So interesting stuff. Here's a page on the Bank of Canada website that talks about digital currency, and they're saying that they're not rolling it out yet, but they're getting ready just in case. So central bank digital currency. We are building the capacity to issue a digital version of the Canadian dollar, known as CBDC, that Canadians can trust and rely on so we can be ready should the need arise. Currently, we do not have plans to issue a digital currency. Ultimately, Parliament and the Government of Canada will determine if or what or when to issue a CBDC. So I think it's funny that they've said over and over they don't have plans to tax housing or your principal residence, but they keep studying it. We don't have plans to implement the CBDC yet. We don't have plans to initiate a lockdown in Ontario, right? We don't have plans right now, but we'll tell you if that changes. Oh, it changed. Bam. That's pretty wild. I don't know. We'll see. Do you think 2023 will see the introduction of a central bank digital currency? Here's the prediction from Dmitry Medvedev. I think this is the Russian government official. He's the he's the deputy chair of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. And he was the president of Russia from 2008 till 2012. He says, on the New Year's Eve, everybody's into making predictions. Many come up with futuristic hypotheses as if competing to single out the wildest and even most absurd ones. Here's our humble contribution. What can happen in 2023? I think this is packed in, I think it's pessimistic, and I think it's packed in with, it would, if all of this happened in 2023, it would be an extremely busy year. Lots of things would need to take place for this to be accurate. Sorry, I still have a bit of a tickle. Anyway, regardless. Back to Dimitri. Oil prices will rise to $150 a barrel, and gas price will top $5 per 1,000 cubic meters. The UK will rejoin the EU. There's been noises about this. The EU will collapse after the UK's return. Euro will drop out of use as the formal EU currency. 4. Poland and Hungary will occupy western regions of the formerly existing Ukraine. The Fourth Reich will be created, encompassing the territory of Germany and its satellites, Poland, the Baltic states, Czechia, Slovakia, the Kiev Republic, and other outcasts. War will break out between France and the Fourth Reich. Europe will be divided. Poland reparations in the process. Repartitioned in the process, so cut up. Northern Ireland will separate from the United Kingdom and join the Republic of Ireland. Civil war will break out in the U.S., California and Texas becoming independent states as a result. Texas and Mexico, like this would have to be happening by summer. If it's not happening by summer, and if that's happening by summer, that's going to have impact in other places. It's going to have massive impact in other places. But if any of this, if a Fourth Reich breaks out in Germany, that's going to be another interesting thing that would need to, there would need to be a lot going on, I think. And I'm not sure that I see it, but Elon Musk also was somebody who tweeted this thread out saying, you've got to read this thread. It's wild. Presuming to, the way I read it was that he was saying this was worth being aware of. I don't know, likely, but worth being aware of. Anyway, civil war breaks out in the U.S., California and Texas becoming independent states. Texas and Mexico will form an allied state. Elon Musk will win the presidential election. That's 2024. In a number of states, which after the new civil wars end, will have been given to the GOP. So an entire fracturing of the United States into a man in the high castle kind of scenario. I just don't know. Right? Especially with the Fourth Reich there, it seems like fiction, right? All the largest stock markets and financial activity will leave the US and Europe and move to Asia. While if the BRICS Plus model is backed by oil and gold, there's a case to be made for that, sure. And this guy, a Russian government official, he might be a little biased to say that the BRICS model is going to take off and work really well and everybody's going to love it, right? So, yeah. The Bretton Woods system of monetary management will collapse, leading to the IMF and the World Bank crash. Euro and dollar will stop circulating as the global reserve currencies. Digital fiat currencies will be actively used instead. 2023 to 2025. Season's greetings to you all, Anglo-Saxons friends and their happily oinking piglets, the politicians. Right? I don't know. Let me know what you think about Dimitri's predictions in the comments. CP24 is reporting police shootings in Canada up by almost 25% since 2021. Police shootings in Canada up almost 25%. It seems like shootings overall are up everywhere. Violence is up everywhere. And I don't really trust the news for a straight answer on the precipitating factors or why this is happening or why we can't get a handle on this. Justin Trudeau's going after legal gun owners after all, and we know that they're the ones shooting up Toronto, obviously, because that's what Justin Trudeau says, and that's how he's behaving through his legislation. So weird that it's having the opposite effect, right? Because this Marco Mendocino's gun push started in 2021, and since then, it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. Immigration, here's Brian B, and he's a pollster. He does, what does he do? Too Close to Call. Some say I'm the Gordon Ramsay of polling analysts. So he analyzes polls. The polls are bought and paid for. They use Angus Reid form members and online surveys instead of doing an honest poll because they're not interested in an honest poll. They're interested in manufacturing paid for headlines. But that's another story. He says, from David Green, one of Canada's leading experts on immigration in the Globe and Mail today, can someone tell me why the NDP and the Conservative Party are all in favor of the increased targets? That makes no sense politically. The LCP or the LPC, sure, it's the party of elites, and elites benefit from it. It's completely abnormal that our left-wing party supports policies that will likely hurt working-class families. Some of the modern right that is trying to attract these voters, or same for the modern right that is trying to attract these voters. Notice that highest immigration can hurt other recent immigrants. Yeah, but what Brian's not understanding here is that the radical leftists who have taken over our government, the WEF, they view all citizens of the world as global citizens, and Canada's got a lot of resources that aren't being used. And so it doesn't matter that the new immigrants are crowding out the old immigrants. All that matters is they continue bringing people in to continue the plan of whatever the World Economic Forum is rolling out. So it doesn't have anything to do with voters in Canada anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a globalist shell game to keep people passive until the scales have tipped too far to do anything about it. Back to this. So you could oppose the increased targets. Oh, okay. So he says it's completely abnormal, blah, blah, blah. So you could oppose the increase to targets and look for friendly current immigrants. I want you to be successful here. I want you to find a good job and buy a house. Buy a house. People who have grown up in the country would have to save if the average salary is accurate, would have to save for 20, 25 years in order to get a down payment for a house. And in 25 years, how much do you think houses are going to be? The rent keeps going up. The rent's doubled in the last, 6, 7 years. And people can barely get by, never mind saving up for buying a house. We want you to be successful here and buy a house. Well, these guys are giving out TVs. So, successful here. Successful looks like getting me one of them TVs, right? It's pretty wild. I've often said, I don't like that we lie and say there's lots of opportunity in Canada. Sure, there's jobs. Sure, you could maybe find a place to rent if you're not in Toronto or one of the hotbeds. But I think the opportunities that are here are fundamentally misrepresented to people who are coming here. And I think that that's wrong. And I think that there's an economic argument to be made, but nobody wants to make it. Nobody wants to hear it. If you're not for immigration, you are a right-wing white supremacist, and they will call you that. It's crazy. Brian says, tell me, when has it worked for the Conservatives to just copy the Liberals' position on an issue? They're going after Pierre Poilievre big time, which is interesting to me. But all that means they're going after Danielle Smith the same. So will they be able to get through this? I don't know. Will they be able to meaningfully win an election in spite of the terrible press? We'll see. I don't know. Here's the United Kingdom. Little Boats says government-enforced diversity now includes planting young men without IDs, many using false names and ages, and lying about their origins and hiding any criminal backgrounds across Britain. Just housing them costs us £10.2 million a day. How safe are you and your family? And what's going on is quite frightening. The idea that it is your civic responsibility to pick up migrants who got on a dinghy in France to come to the United Kingdom to get welfare, basically, benefits, workers' benefits, to say that's your responsibility is insane. It's completely insane, but we do. And as taxpayers, we put up with it. I don't know how to meaningfully fight it. Because if you don't pay your taxes, somebody's coming to knock on your door. And if you say, that doesn't represent what I want done with my taxes, they say, well, tough luck. Sorry, buddy. It doesn't matter. So I don't know what to tell you about that kind of stuff. I don't know how to fight that in a way that is not going to get you in more trouble than you're going to achieve. Then you're going to meaningfully change things. But it seems incredible to spend that kind of money here, housing people who have never contributed to the country. And what's the purpose? Especially if they're not here to work, if they're not there to work, What are they there for? Locals have questions, and locals are being victimized by crime and all sorts of things. It's very, very interesting. In Paris on the 24th, there was riots and crazy things, people tipping cars over. And I read these were Kurds, but migrants, one way or the other. I don't know if they're Kurds, but migrants. They're tipping over cars. They're lighting things on fire. And do they have an Emergencies Act? Did these guys have their bank accounts frozen? Here's the Canadian riot protest. There's a bouncy castle there, and there's some kids in the bouncy castle. They tried to say that this was dangerous. This was a terrorist event. And then they did a whole show trial, an entire show trial. And who knows what Rouleau's going to come back with. But I don't trust a judge who was appointed by the Liberals and who donated to the Liberals to give justice. I don't trust them to be impartial, right? Because we've seen over and over again that our justice system is not impartial. Alan Williams says, how many days can I leave an electric vehicle at the airport in February in Canada and still have a sufficient charge to get home when I return from my flight to the sun? And here's C. Shaw. Yesterday I showed you the guy who was trying to charge his Tesla in 19 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know, minus 15 or something like that. It's cold. Minus 17 maybe. And he couldn't charge it. He spent days with plugged in, and the heater on the battery couldn't get the battery warm enough to start the charge. And that was terrible, right? And this guy says, Western Standard, quote, last winter, a fully charged Tesla left Edmonton to drive to Calgary, about 180 miles. If he remembers, he says. It was minus 40. The Tesla died on the outskirts of Red Deer after about 90 miles. Then they discovered the battery would not charge at minus 40 and had to tow the thing. So, right? I mean, these electric vehicles are not going to work in a Canadian winter. They don't care. Doesn't seem to matter. Reality does not seem to matter to the people who are saying the correct words, right? They're reporting what they're told. Here is a governor talking about how this winter storm is so climate changey. Used to be, we just called this wintertime. I remember I used to go up, I had family in Lindsay, Ontario, and we used to drive up from Guelph to Lindsay at Christmas time, and then we drive home. I don't know. It was insane. We'd go for like a day, and we'd drive up one day and come back the next day. I don't know why we didn't stay 2 days. Who knows? But we left, and it was a snowstorm, and it was like a bad enough snowstorm. And all of these conditions and worse. I mean, I was too young to drive. I wasn't driving yet. And I was in the back holding on to the oh shit handle the whole time. And we were going maybe, 25 kilometers an hour. It wasn't very fast, but it felt fast in that snowstorm. It took us a long time to get home. They're trying to say it's climate change. It's just winter. Here we go.
Last night I had to bring in the National Guard. The conditions, the blinding snow, the zero visibility, absolute whiteouts, it may go down as one of the worst in history. People are comparing this to the dreaded blizzard of '77, where Buffalo first got its reputation for having an unprecedented amount of snow. We broke that record again a month ago. So it's very clear to me that the effects of climate change are wreaking havoc everywhere.
The effects of climate change. It's wintertime. Remember back in '77 when climate change was super bad? We broke that record last week when climate change was worse. Sure. Or it's a cycle. I don't know. 77 was 40 odd years ago, right? Maybe there's a cycle. Who knows? But I don't think sitting there and saying, that blizzard in '77, normal weather. This blizzard now that was worse than that blizzard in '77 by a couple of whatever degrees, 10% worse, 20% worse, who knows? That's climate change. Definitely. I know because I watch the news, right? Climate change. You're a scientist. Holy smokeronies. CTV News is saying, Russia says it shot down a Ukrainian drone near the airbase. This just made me laugh a little bit. I thought it was funny. The Russian military reported Monday that it shot down a Ukrainian drone approaching an airbase deep inside Russia. The second time the facility has been targeted this month, again revealing weaknesses in Russia's air defenses. But they shot the drone down. How is that a weakness? Hey, Ukraine, we shot your drone down again. Second time this month. We've found more of their weaknesses. How much do those drones cost, Ukraine? because we seem to be paying for them. Russia's defense ministry said debris killed 3 servicemen, that's not so good, at the Engels Air Base, which houses the Tu-95 and Tu-160 nuclear-capable strategic bomber planes that have struck Ukraine with missiles in the 10-month-old war. 10-month-old war? This thing started in 2014 when NATO put its own leaders in Crimea, right? Yeah, I think so. So what are you going to do? I just thought it was funny that obviously Russia shooting down the Ukrainian drones is a deficiency in their air defenses. Okay, sure. Here is more proof that they don't want you to travel, and they'll do whatever they can to stop you from traveling. This guy lost his luggage. Somebody posted an image of all this luggage stacked up in a terminal somewhere. Michael says, hey, Air Canada, good news. My lost bag is by incredible coincidence visible in this picture posted recently from Terminal 1 at Toronto Pearson. BS News, I provided, do you want to hear something terrible, you say? I provided the pic to you by direct message at your request 24 hours ago and have had no response. Can you tell me how to retrieve my bag? It's been 6 days. And he says, saga over. I went to the airport and infiltrated the baggage area like a Cold War spy and grabbed my target. Baggage home. If not for random chance on SM, no way I got it anytime soon. Air Canada provided zero guidance even after being told where the item was. Crazy. Good luck to all. I hope you see your bag in this picture because that's the only way you're getting it back. Travel. It seems like travel is being incentivized to be phased out. Seems pretty wild. Justin Trudeau's in Jamaica. There's a health travel warning for Jamaica for COVID. Isn't that weird? It's a little weird. Interesting how, Ryan says, interesting how Mr. Keeping Canadians Safe travels to a country under a COVID travel advisory. So it's just a little COVID, right? Cheapers creepers, calm down. He's gonna rapid test or whatever. We've been talking about Beyond Meat a lot, eating meat replacements or lab-grown meat or some other kind of meat. Replacement is the best term. And I just happened upon this minute-long video yesterday, and I'd never seen it before, although I recognize this chick's voice. So I'm not sure if I have seen it before and I just forgot the details, but it's a very concise 1 minute about what's going on with and why with meat and the push for meat alternatives. Here we go.
Beyond Meat is a scam. Hi, I'm Shannon, and I was a victim of vegan propaganda. Let's play a game. One of these ingredients lists is a Beyond Meat patty, and the other, premium dog food. Can you distinguish between the two? This food revolution is so tasty, even celebrities like Kim K are jumping on board. Billionaires are pushing for the vegan agenda, with toxic substitutes to replace vital animal products. Beyond Meat is cheaper to produce and way more profitable for them. We're being pushed to diet known to onset mental disorders, lower fertility and testosterone levels. Why is this? Even the World Health Organization predicts that we'll be eating a lot less meat by 2030. They tell us that if we want to solve climate change, we must stop eating meat, and yet only 11% of greenhouse gas emissions are because of agriculture, and about 3% of those emissions are from beef. Hopefully, by now, you'll realize that. Beyond Meat.
So, it seems plausible. Take it with a grain of salt. It is the internet after all, but it does. I don't want people engineering dog food for humans because then we're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Soylent Green, right? And that's not something that I'm interested in either. I've seen Human Meat Project, and I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in eating human meat, but it's one of those rabbit holes where it seems so unbelievable that it's not something that is being seriously talked about. But I think that was similar about men can be women and women can be men, and all you need to do is say, I'm a woman or I'm a man, if you're the other sex, and everybody has to say, okay, you're so brave, right? So like, here is Pierre Poilievre, and he is putting out his Christmas message. Here we go.
Hey everyone, Pierre Poilievre here with my beautiful wife Anaida, wishing you a Merry Christmas. Christians around the world are celebrating the birth of Christ, which is kind of a rebirth and a feeling of renewal for everyone. And whether you're religious or not, it's a time to gather around the fire or the tree, exchange some gifts, hang out, enjoy yourself, hopefully catch up on some rest. What do you think?
I think it is a time to spend with your family and also to think of the less fortunate and to be generous about it and to look to the year ahead. And hopefully it's a better one than the last year.
Absolutely. So Merry Christmas to you and your family. Enjoy some peace and some relaxation. Raise a glass to the forthcoming new year. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and all of your loved ones.
Feliz Navidad.
So there you go. There's the Christmas message, very traditional. Leader of the Conservative Party. Here's Rachel Notley. I'm pretty sure she watches my show. It says, this is her account. She says, "Oh, look, the trolls on the internet must have gotten me a gift. To R. Nutley from Union Boss Man." That's her husband. That's her husband. So, I mean, at least they're having a laugh about it. This is pretty interesting. Canadian Heritage says, this is the official Canadian Heritage Twitter account. They say, "Happy Kwanzaa to everyone celebrating in Canada." I think it's Schwanza. I think they got it wrong. Isn't it Schwanza? I'm pretty sure Nancy Pelosi said Schwanza, and she is an expert in it. So I'm happy Schwanza. Kwanzaa is an important time for Black communities to reconnect to their roots and heritage. I've talked about Kwanzaa before. I'm not about dancing on, well, I mean, you know, Kwanzaa was I think it's the 26th and the 27th they've decided. So, I mean, you know, we'll talk about Kwanzaa, maybe not on Kwanzaa, but I noticed that there was no post on Christmas Day. There was no meme, no graphic for Christmas Day. They got Ahmed Hassan to talk about Christmas. And I'm not going to play it. December 24th, they got Ahmed Hassan to do 37 seconds on Christmas. Hold on. Does he even say Christmas? Let's listen to find out. I haven't listened to this yet because it's just painful. Hold on. We can compare this Ahmed Hassan Christmas message to Mr. Poilievre's Christmas message. This is how much the Canadian Heritage Department cares about Christmas under, I guess it's Ahmed Hassan. And he says, here you go.
Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Today, Christians in Canada and around the world are celebrating Christmas. As Canadians from coast to coast to coast gather with their loved ones, let us reflect on the messages of compassion, love, and selflessness. En cette saison, profitons également de l'occasion pour soutenir la communauté et aider les personnes dans le besoin. From my family to yours, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Joyeux Noël.
He did say Merry Christmas. I'm medium shocked about that. But he said today, but it wasn't today. It was posted on the 24th. So that's weird. No post on the 25th and the Kwanzaa post on the 26th. So Canadian Heritage, right? I was going to start with a Kwanzaa song, but I can't do it. The Kwanzaa song is her dancing around a statue of a head. Oh, wait, where is it? Here. Yeah, it's a big head. And she's talking about how great Kwanzaa is and joyous. It's just interesting. It's not something that anybody really talked about in Canada until I think 2017, 2018. But it was certainly not something we weren't all thinking about Kwanzaa in the 1980s in Canada. That was not happening. This is just a meme. I thought it was funny. I'm not going to play it now though. It's the drumming cat guy with the rhythm cat. I don't even know what the name of the meme is. I just put this up on Twitter yesterday because I thought it was funny. But this image, it's a vote for nobody. And it's like a campaign sign. And nobody is a guy in a suit with a blank face. And then it says, nobody will keep election promises. Nobody will listen to your concerns. Nobody will help the poor and unemployed. Nobody cares. If nobody is elected, then things will be better. Nobody tells the truth. And so I just thought it was funny. And this was on it was on Sun Suns for about 20 years. And then Sun Suns changed hands. But this is the MacDonnell Street. I think it's the MacDonnell Street lot. And you can see the parking number here. But this was in downtown Guelph. This was a kind of one of the most it lasted for a long time, this bit of graffiti. And then when Sun Suns left, I think this graffiti got removed. But I've had this on my computer. I've had it out in an image dump. I don't know, for years. I didn't take this picture. I downloaded it from the internet, which is funny. I used to search Guelph on Google just to see what images were indexed because it was interesting. And I thought, oh, that's a funny image. And I put it in my little image thing. So I didn't take it, but it's been kicking around in my files for a while. But I always thought it was an interesting message. And I mean, it kind of implies anarchy, right? Which that's not surprising in Guelph. There's a lot of open anarchists in Guelph, which is another interesting little tidbit of Guelph. Very socialist town Guelph is. But fundamentally, I think it's apropos for this time. Nobody is going to do what the population is asking them to do. So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that? That's enough of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out Speaking Moistly and all the stuff I do on there. I've asked Greg if we're hanging out today. I haven't heard back, so I don't know. We'll see. But it's Christmas, so no pressure. I mean, jeepers creepers. Everybody's got things to do, family to visit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope you're enjoying your holidays and time off. I hope you're enjoying your Kwanzaa. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful